Hello my lovelies, I hope you're all well. Now you may or may not be aware of what is currently going on in Ireland. If not, I'm going to fill you in. On Thursday, just gone last week, a Algerian-born man attacked 5 people, stabbing them, and 3 of these people were children. One 5-year-old girl is still currently in critical condition, and the media's reporting on this and the resulting rhetoric from politicians has been somewhat disturbing. Conor McGregor, obviously a very, very famous MMA fighter and an Irish national, has gone online and basically said that, Ireland have had enough of this. Now, if you're not aware, Ireland is a very, very small population, like less than 7 million people in total live in the Republic of Ireland. But they have had mass immigration very, very quickly, meaning that almost 20% now of the population are non-Irish. Now, this alone causes a massive difference to the culture and just the demographic. That importing that many people that quickly is bound to have negative and, you could say some positive effects as well. But when it comes to immigration, I think we need to be honest and we need to say that it's the type of people that are coming that really affects the culture. So this Algerian-born person who attacked the children and staff, he was stopped by a number of people, one of which was a Brazilian Brazilian-born immigrant. So there has been a lot of talk about, a lot of anti-immigration talk, which is bound to happen when this sort of thing happens. And it's not the only case, okay? There have been many, many reports of violent crimes being committed by immigrants. The Brazilian immigrant came out and said, I don't know why there's been all this talk of anti-immigrant, because I'm an immigrant too and I helped stop the man. But you have to look at the differences in the people themselves. So Brazil, obviously a very Christian country, Algeria, not so much. So right there, you've got cultural differences between these two different individuals. And as it turned out, this Algerian-born person should have been deported 20 years ago. But Ireland, being so incredibly liberal, decided to let them stay and gave them citizenship. And then this person was also arrested in May. Apparently they have quite a lengthy criminal record, but they were arrested in May having possession of a knife. But as far as I can see, no further action was taken because of mental health issues. And now we all know what's happened since. So Conor McGregor, got this article here from the Daily Wire. Conor McGregor under investigation for online hate speech by the Irish authorities. So off the back of this event, which has led to protests and riots and looting, obviously the riots and the looting, I believe, are opportunistic scumbags taking advantage of the situation, but there was genuine protests that wanted to draw attention to the fact that you cannot just import masses and masses of people and expect things to be good. So Conor McGregor has spoken out against this mass immigration and basically said that Ireland is being changed and Ireland is at war. And the government's response is to increase hate speech laws and legislation, which we're going to get into. So, former UFC champion and Ireland native Conor McGregor is reportedly under investigation for online hate speech linked to comments made on social media criticising Irish authorities for their handling of a suspected Algerian immigrant. It's not suspected, he is an Algerian immigrant, stabbing 5 people, including 3 children, last week. McGregor, one of Ireland's most famous citizens with approximately 60 million followers on Instagram and X, weighed in on the assault on social media following the attack, saying, "Ireland, we are at war." Do not let any Irish property be took over unannounced, McGregor said. Evaporate said property, it's a war. Violent riots erupted in Ireland's capital, Dublin, on Thursday after the alleged assailant stabbed 5 people. Well, it's not alleged, it happened, including 2 adults and 3 children as young as 5 years old near a school in the city centre. And I just want to note here, anybody who targets children, automatically evil. Evil personified. All but one of the victims in the attack reportedly continue to receive medical treatment. Yes, and one, a 5-year-old girl, is still critical. I believe she was stabbed in the neck. The night of violence. You say violence, but literally nobody was hurt. Nobody was hurt during these protests. Not one single person was hurt. It was just, they were just wrecking stuff. Which is what the BLMs did, right? That's what BLM riots did. And no one said anything. Some of whom set a bus and police car ablaze and damaged multiple buildings as officials suspended all public transport in the city. Irish Garda Commissioner Drew Harris labelled the Dublin riots as disgraceful scenes caused by a hooligan faction driven by far-right ideology. Of course. But the police commissioner's remarks were met with harsh criticism from the UFC star. Of course. So McGregor said, innocent children ruthlessly stabbed by a mentally deranged non-national in Dublin, Ireland today. Our chief of police had this to say on the riots in the aftermath. Him saying it was far right. Drew, not good enough. There is grave danger among us in Ireland that should never be here in the first place. And there has been zero action done to support the public in any way, shape or form with this frightening fact. Not good enough. Make change or make way. Ireland for the victory. God bless those who attacked today, we pray. After his initial remarks, McGregor emphasised he did not condone the riots, stolen property and destruction or any attacks on first responders. Last night's scenes achieved nothing towards fixing the issues we face, he said. I do understand frustrations, however, and I do understand a move must be made to ensure the change we need is ushered in. And fast. I am in the process of arranging. Believe me, I am way more tactical and I have backing. There will be change in Ireland, mark my words. Now, it sounds to me like Conor McGregor is planning on running for some kind of office in Ireland. Just from the way he was speaking there, he was speaking very much like a politician. But as authorities organised to confront rioters, McGregor's comments echoed across the internet as reports swelled that the suspect was a foreign national, sparking the large anti-immigration process to flood the streets of Dublin. Yeah, I mean, this was the straw that broke the camel's back. You have huge numbers of people moving into Ireland. They have a housing crisis. They are about 250,000 houses short for the Irish population. And yet they are importing all these people. So yes, there is a lot of unrest in Ireland. And you have to remember that Ireland has a long history of being oppressed. They are not, I know there's this American version of oppressor oppressed, which has kind of flooded across the Western world, so that it's all based on skin colour, right? So anyone who's white is an oppressor, anyone who's non-white is the oppressed. But you just have to look very briefly at Ireland's history to know that they have never, ever been the oppressor. They were never colonisers and they never oppressed anyone. They were the oppressed. And I say this as an English person because we were the ones that did the oppressing. So if anybody should not be accused of being an oppressor, it is the Irish. McGregor's comments instantly made the MMA artist a leading voice in Ireland as the nation deals with an influx of immigrants which reportedly has risen to its second highest level in recent months and among the highest per capita in the European Union. This is the other thing to remember. The Republic of Ireland is still in the European Union. Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So they are not part of the EU, they are still part of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, the UK as a whole. So it's two completely separate countries there. Authorities have reportedly since launched an investigation into the MMA fighter as part of an inquiry into the dissemination of so-called online hate speech, according to the Sunday Times. The investigation comes as Irish officials have reportedly started preparing to pass radical legislation concerning the public speech law, which historically has lacked a consistent definition. And it still lacks a consistent definition, because we all know that when they say hate speech, they just mean speech they don't like. And all the people in these positions of power that are passing these bills are very, very liberal. Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar, who is half Indian, by the way, recently told local media that the lawmakers should immediately pass the legislation. You see the knee-jerk to pass this legislation in the next few weeks to target individuals who post messages and images that stir up hatred and violence. But how can you prove that somebody's words are stirring up hatred and violence? Do you see what I mean? There's no proof here. So that's what's going on with McGregor anyway. So he's now under investigation. It might interest you to know that currently the recording of ethnicity on crime data in Ireland does not exist, as you can see here. It's being considered. So this was back in 2022. They were reviewing whether they should start recording ethnicity. And this just goes to show that Ireland has been predominantly Irish for a very, very long time. And this is a very recent phenomena of having imported almost 20% non-Irish people into Ireland. So we're going to take a look now at this bill for hate speech that they're trying to pass. Ireland attempts to quell riot with hate speech laws. After an Algerian-born man attempted to stab several children. Do you see what I mean about the reporting? He didn't attempt to, he did. In Dublin last week, a riot kicked off in the centre of Dublin. While it was attributed to the far right, the mysterious far right, it mainly consisted of the usual opportunistic lootings. Thank you for pointing that out. A Foot Locker that had been ransacked in a 2006 riot was again looted in this one. You will always have these opportunistic people that come out, the ones that just want to cause trouble. And I've even seen videos of Irish people at the protests confronting the looters and saying, you know, what the hell do you think you're doing? Ireland has a state government, but its society has always been effectively governed by a clerical class, formerly Catholic, now media, while a foreign class extracts the value and money from Ireland, formerly British, now Silicon Valley. Oof. The clerical class has gone into overdrive in recent weeks, emphasising that there is nothing wrong with Ireland's incredible demographic transformation, only with the far right that dislikes it. See, doesn't that tell you everything you need to know? When the mainstream media are saying, there's nothing wrong with importing all these masses of people from different cultures, it's just the far right that have a problem with it. That's what you should have an issue with, the far right. The problem is that everyone in these positions of power are so far left that anything to the right of them, which isn't even centre yet, is considered far right. The Irish Times hastened to note that one of the heroic bystanders in the stabbing incident was a Brazilian immigrant, a man who has already now been honoured, unlike all the native Irish that also intervened. Do you see? They're trying to drive home this message that immigration is good. The Irish Times also hastily mentioned that the alleged assailant was a naturalised citizen of Ireland. Yeah, but they were not Irish and they're not Irish born. Conveniently burying the fact that he was a habitual criminal, a welfare recipient, and his legal status only came about because the state never enforced deportation orders on him. In fact, the state rarely enforces deportation notices on anyone. Well, that's because they're in the EU. We in Great Britain left the EU, but we are still dominated by the European Court of Human Rights, which means it's very, very difficult for us to deport anybody. Some estimates have it that 18% of the population of Ireland is now foreign born. That's huge. A rate higher than even the great waves of migration brought to the United States in the late 19th century. And an absolutely shocking number for a state that struggled with emigration problems as recently as a decade ago and whose nurses still emigrate to Australia. Yeah, and remember, it's a tiny population, Ireland, a tiny population. So 20% of that very small population is now foreign born. That the far right has reliably come along to every European country after that country becomes transformed by mass migration, even to Sweden, seems to have occurred to absolutely everyone in Ireland, except the far right themselves, who have not managed to elect a single person. Yeah, I mean, more and more people are waking up. You only have to look at recent elections in Italy and Argentina and places like that. People are electing the people that sit more to the right of politics because their countries have been wrecked by mass immigration. Sweden, yeah, they really need to change something. Nevertheless, the riots have caused the government to go into warp drive to pass their proposed hate speech laws. Now, bear in mind that they already have laws for this kind of thing, but they want to make them even more draconian. Ireland already has laws on the books to stop criminal harassment and laws to stop the incitement of riot. But the proposed hate speech laws go much, much further, to the point of criminalising speech that a person has neither uttered nor published. A person could be arrested under these new laws for merely possessing speech, perhaps on his phone, that a judge deems offensive. Can you imagine? So the sweeping powers that this law will give the government and the police means that they can just demand that you hand your phone over so they can go through all your messages and everything. And if you have a meme on your phone that they deem is offensive, even if you haven't sent it to anybody, if it's just there on your phone, then that could be 5 years in prison. And if you refuse to hand your phone over to them, that could be 12 months in prison. And I thought our safety hate speech laws were draconian. Some sources are already reporting that MMA superstar Conor McGregor is being investigated by authorities. Interesting times ahead. My goodness me. This is insanity. Insanity. Like, what has happened to Ireland? It's crazy. If you think, the English were dominating Ireland for a long time. There were wars fought over this, to give the Irish people the autonomy over their own country. There were wars fought. People died for that autonomy. And now their leadership are just handing their country away to other people. It's insanity. If you're Irish, I really want to hear from you in the comments. And if you have any thoughts on this situation, any of my viewers, I want to hear what you think about this craziness. Do you think Conor McGregor is going to run for office? I would be really interested to see that. Because it seems that people that are a little bit further to the right, they're not even right wing, most of these people that are getting elected, but they are getting elected. So it's interesting times we're living in, and I just hope that a lot of these countries can turn things around and save themselves. But anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. I'll see you very soon.